Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. XRP sits on the XRP ledger in a position of privilege. It is the only native asset of the XRP ledger. And the more XRP ledger gets adopted for various things, the more valuable XRP itself becomes. The more XRP cements itself as a permanent winner in the crypto space. Now, given that there's been a substantial increase in real-world assets being tokenized on the XRP ledger, I spent a lot of time. I've spent a lot of time explaining why this is great for XRP itself. So, in a nutshell, it's because these are a couple of the higher level reasons anyway. It's because anything that's tokenized on the XRP ledger can not be tokenized without XRP, because that's the way the ledger is coded. Also, tokenized assets cannot transact on the XRP ledger without XRP. XRP is literally required for every single transaction. It functions as a gas token in that regard. And that's because XRP sits in a position of privilege because it's the only native asset on the XRP ledger. That's the way that it was coded. But you see, there's another big reason that XRP will continue to become more and more valuable as real-world assets get tokenized, and I'm going to explain why. I want to focus on one particular use case, because we are seeing this. There's an explosion in real-world assets getting tokenized throughout the crypto space, including on the XRP ledger. And this is something that's here to stay because it obviously just makes life better. You pick up efficiencies, you lower costs, it's on an immutable blockchain, all sorts of benefits picked up here, obviously. And as a result of this, what I'm telling you, and this, again, I'll explain why in great detail, this will, just having more real world assets tokenized on the XRP ledger, will make XRP more valuable. It absolutely will. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, so I came across this article from the Crypto Basic titled Ripple CTO says XRP Ledger is more than just XRP. And that's certainly true. They're talking about David Schwartz, of course. And this is the post that they were referencing here. And here's what he wrote. He says the XRP Ledger is more than just XRP. There are stable coins. There will be tokenized real-world assets. Actually, I got to pause a note here. Not just will there be, there will increasingly be, so he's right. There already are. I will note that right now, U.S. Treasuries have been tokenized and are live on the XRP ledger. Money market funds have been tokenized and are live right now on the XRP ledger. These are real-world assets that you really can buy and you really can sell. So anyway, it says there will be tokenized real-world assets, loans of all kinds of things. A decentralized exchange doesn't work with just one asset. But XRP has a privileged place on XRPL. It's the only asset that any account can receive. And so I'll pause and note, of course, that's obviously true. Any account can receive it. There's no restrictions on that whatsoever. So no trust lines need to be set up, as would be the case, of course, with anything else that's tokened on the ledger. So again, it's one more reason that XRP itself is privileged. There's just no friction there. It just is. And then he says, it's the only asset without a counterparty. Pathfinding checks for XRP liquidity first. AutoBridging makes offers to and from XRP more likely to be taken. It's the only asset you can pay transaction fees with. And folks, that's it. That's what I'm going to come back to in just a second here. AutoBridging. What you'll see, and I'll explain how this works, but the more real-world assets that you have tokenized on the XRP ledger, the more you're going to need that function. And the more you need that function, the more valuable XRP is. So you'll see in just a second here. But anyway, then he says, the question to ponder is how much value XRPL can generate and to what extent that can turn into XRP value. That's very hard to do, though. For example, it's very hard to know how much of XRP's value today comes from XRPL's value. Yeah, and so that's it's a brilliant insight. That's obviously true, unquestionably. And I'll just say this: there is no perfect, detailed answer to that. I think, in my opinion, it's just unknowable because there's too many moving parts in life in the world. But it's just all intertwined. My response to that is he's obviously right. It's all intertwined. And so the more useful the XRP ledger is, the more valuable XRP is. And because XRP is valuable and useful, in turn, that obviously helps the XRP ledger. It drives adoption, it drives interest, speculation, so on and so forth, all sorts of activity. So that unquestionably is true. But take a look at this. So this is xrpl.org, and they're explaining what AutoBridging actually is. So let me run through this, and they give a real-world example here, which makes it super easy to understand what AutoBridging is doing here. But then you'll see, after understanding this, why the more things are tokenized on the XRP ledger, the better it is for XRP itself. It makes XRP more desirable. So anyway, it reads as follows. Any offer in the XRP ledger's decentralized exchange that would exchange 2 tokens could potentially use XRP as an intermediary currency in a synthetic order book. This is because of AutoBridging, which serves to improve liquidity across all asset pairs by using XRP when doing so is cheaper than trading directly. This works because of XRP's nature as a native cryptocurrency to the XRP ledger. Offer execution can use a combination of direct and auto-bridged offers to achieve the best total exchange rate. Okay, so upon hearing that, you might think, what the hell does that mean? It might sound like a bit of word salad if it's the first time you've heard something like that. But that's why it's useful to run through the real-world example that they cited here, and this will make it make sense in very simple terms here. So here's an example, all right? And they cite 2 different currencies in this example. The first one is GBP. That, of course, is the Great Britain pound, or just the pound for short, of course. The other one is BRL. That's the ticker symbol, of course. And BRL is the Brazilian real. So you've got 2 different currencies, right? And here's the example they cite. Anita places an offer to sell GBP and buy BRL. She might find that this uncommon market has few offers. So folks, think about this, if there aren't a lot of people that want to get from that currency to the other currency, then maybe on the ledger, on the XRP ledger itself, you're not going to see that there's a lot of buy or sell orders for that particular pair, right? And so maybe there would be all sorts of people willing to take GBP for XRP and vice versa, and maybe there's all sorts of pairs where you can buy XRP with BRL and vice versa. But maybe that pair specifically, the pair GBP/BRL, maybe that's not that common. Maybe so depending on how uncommon a pair is, there could be no offers in any given moment, or just very few. And maybe you want to buy a ton of whatever it is. Well, what do you do then? Well, that's where auto-bridging comes in here, so that you don't have to. This is all automated. So check this out. So again, Anita places an offer to sell GBP and buy BRL. She might find that this uncommon market has few offers. There is one offer with a good rate, but it has insufficient quantity to satisfy Anita's trade, right? And so again, what Anita here in this example wants to do is get rid of GBP, and she wants BRL. But there's not enough offer on the XRP ledger right now to get the quantity of BRL she wants by simply selling the GBP. There's just not enough offers available in that moment. That's what they're saying right there. Anyway, the example continues. However, both GBP and BRL have active competitive markets to XRP. Okay, and so folks, that's when a minute ago I was saying, okay, maybe the GBP/BRL pair, maybe there's not a whole lot of activity at any given moment on the XRP ledger, not a lot of demand for that specifically. But there's likely to be a lot of activity for GBP XRP, right? A lot of people that want to get in and out of XRP specifically, and and that's their fiat currency of choice. And then in Brazil, BRL, there would probably be good amount of activity there as well. These are fiat currencies after all, right? So you have that though, even if there's not a lot specifically for the GBP BRL pair, right? Okay. Anyway, the example continues. The XRP ledger's auto-bridging system finds a way to complete Anita's offer by purchasing XRP with GBP from one trader, then selling the XRP to another trader to buy BRL. Anita automatically gets the best rate possible by combining the small offer in the direct GBP BRL market with the better composite rates created by pairing GBP XRP and XRP BRL offers. And so you can put through an order of what you want, and then the XRP ledger through AutoBridging will find the most desirable route to make that happen, even if it means that you got an extra hop. Like in this case, ideally it would have been easier if there's somebody that you can just deal with just with the GBP BRL pair. But if there's not enough there, again, insufficient quantity, well, XRP ledger takes care of that. And so then you just get into, just like I said, GBP XRP, and then you can sell the XRP to get BRL. And so, but it automatically does that is the thing. And so the reason I'm highlighting this is because, again, I said it a couple of minutes ago, but to be clear, the reason this matters is the more stuff you have tokenized. I mean, here, yes, in this example, we're talking about fiat currencies, but the more stuff you have tokenized, the more you're going to have demand for this. And that increases the utility for XRP itself. It's one more thing. So real world assets, it couldn't be more obvious. Like, this is cementing everything for XRP holders. And so you can consider, like I said, there are already today tokenized money market funds on the XRP ledger, as well as T-bills that are tokenized, right? And so what if you want to trade a tokenized money market fund that you own on the XRP ledger for a tokenized T-bill that someone else owns on the XRP ledger, but there aren't enough offers to satisfy the quantity of T-bills that you want with that trading pair? Well, it's the same thing that we just went through with this example with Anita there. So that's where AutoBridging comes in. So AutoBridging will purchase XRP with the tokenized money market fund, right? And then sell that XRP to purchase the tokenized UST bills. And as a result, again, the more real-world assets there are on the XRP ledger, the more useful XRP itself becomes, making it more desirable. And the more people, businesses, and institutions there will be who are interested in investing in XRP directly as a result. Because even if you're not going to use the XRP ledger yourself, you just want to speculate, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. That's, I think that's fantastic. But knowing that XRP itself is useful is going to drive more speculation, which means more demand. That's the same thing. And look at where this is going. Look at this headline from Cointelegraph. Real world asset token market grows 260% in 2025 as firms embrace regulating crypto. This is a wild jump, and I don't really need to read through the article. I just wanted to make the point. Like, you're in crypto at the right time. This is a fledgling thing that's actually taking hold. And we in the XRP community have spent most of the last decade talking about how the world will eventually get there. I was talking about this on my YouTube channel in the early days, 2018, 2019, because I launched my channel at the end of 2018. I was talking about it quite a bit back then in 2019. It's like, hey, we're going to be in an increasingly liquid world. It's going to be easier to get in and out of positions. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be faster. You don't need a central authority to make this stuff happen anymore. Like, it's on the XRP ledger. It's immutable. All these benefits. And so we just needed the world to catch up. And now here we are another 6 years later from that point. And it is happening. It's fledgling, but the adoption really does seem to be taking hold on the XRP ledger so far. So we want to see that continue. But if this does, my God, XRP just becomes that much more useful. And so take a look at this. The real world asset market surged more than 260% during the first half of 2025, surpassing $23 billion in total valuation. It was $8.6 billion at the beginning of the year, according to a Binance research report shared with Cointelegraph. Folks, that's a major jump, not quite a threefold increase, but we're only in June right now. And that's for this year, 260%. It's just wild. You are so early in crypto right now. Do you get that? I hope you fully appreciate this opportunity that we all have right here because we're paying attention. Most people aren't. We are super early to this stuff. And by the time everybody's figured out, like when it gets there, yeah, everybody's going to come around and understand that we were right about this all these years. By then, the opportunity for life-changing wealth will be gone, but it ain't gone yet. Oh no, it ain't gone yet. Most people are not in this stuff. Almost no one's ever even heard of XRP. And look at what's happening. This is happening in front of you. It's just buck wild. Like, there's never been an opportunity like this in the history of our species, and here we are so fortunate to have this opportunity. I just count your lucky stars, my friends. This is only going to get bigger. This is going to get into the trillions and then the tens of trillions of assets being tokenized, and we just need the XRP blockchain to just secure a piece of it. And it looks like it is. Like so far it actually is, for sure. There's no question about that, actually. but it needs to continue doing that. And if it, because look, it's not going to be the case that everything's tokenized on one chain. That will not be the case. That's already not happening. It's not one chain to rule them all. But we do want the XRP ledger to be one of the winning chains. Isn't this freaking cool as hell? And so again, as this happens, it just makes XRP that much more desirable. It's just so cool. After being here as long as I have, just seeing this actually play out the way that we thought in a general sense that it would, and the way that we hoped it would, it's very satisfying. Like, we saw this before everybody else, and it wasn't just me. You know, if it weren't for a bunch of people that came before me, then I wouldn't have, if they didn't do the research to prop XRP up to the point that it was at that point in 2017, then I wouldn't have known. I know about it because of other people. And so we're all growing off of one another, and we're all learning from one another. And I'm just thankful for it all is what I'm saying. Pretty cool stuff, right? I think so. We picked a winner. Like, it's already done. Like, XRP won. We just need to see it do more of what it's doing. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.